Island Department of Education, members of our municipalities, fellow superintendents, principals, teachers, members of the Board of Education, and all honored guests. It is with special pride, East Providence Townie pride, that we have the honor of hosting this year's Commissioner of Education Angelica Infante Green's educational address. It is also with a great deal of pride that we are here in the beautiful new East Providence High School. The building you see has been a collaboration between the City of East Providence, the Mayor's Office, the East Providence School Department, the Rhode Island Department of Education, and the citizens of East Providence. We know this is new to the state. The art of this building will serve the education of East Providence students for decades to come. I want to say how proud I am to be the superintendent of East Providence. I think this is one of the best cities in the state of Rhode Island. East Providence citizens have what we call townie pride. They have heart. They truly do. I also want to say I am a proud, lifelong Rhode Islander, and I feel that Rhode Island is a wonderful place to live and educate and bring up a family. And I want to say that. I honestly believe that as my children and my grandchildren attend the public school systems in the state of Rhode Island. I hope you did enjoy your tours, and we would like to thank our student tour guides who took you around. We appreciate it very much. And for all the schools that were on display in the cafeteria, let's give those students a round of applause. So I will be taking my leave from East Providence after 7 years. So this is my legacy to the city, of which we are very proud of. In January, I'll be doing my final goodbye, but I leave East Providence in great hands with Dr. Sandra Ferrand, who is will be the new superintendent in the city of East Providence, and Sandy's standing back there. Sandy, say hello to everybody. Right. And now, to the best principal of any high school in the state of Rhode Island, we have Mr. William Black.
And the newest high school principal in the state of Rhode Island. As Superintendent Crowley mentioned, we're very happy to welcome you here to our school. My name is Bill Black, and I am the proud principal of East Providence High School. When looking at the theme for tonight's State of Education, I couldn't be more excited with the theme, Together for Our Kids. I believe Together for Our Kids goes right to school culture. Improving school culture is a passion of mine. I like to call it the space between a handshake or a fist bump. It's that little bit of space, and what do you fill that with? Positivity, negativity, fear, anxiety. Schools that can strengthen connections between students, staff, and families are filling that space with positivity. They are working together for our kids, and we see an example of that tonight. The important thing that happens in education, the most important thing that happens, is in the classroom. Make no doubt about it, it's teaching and learning. And as leaders, we must create those conditions for our teachers to be able to teach and our students to learn. We need to make it the best we can for them. When schools look at students as our kids, they're taking responsibility for all of their students. They're taking responsibility for all the learning that happens in their schools. The work that happens in schools, we know nowadays, is more challenging than ever. There are more demands placed on students and staff every single day. However, we are not alone. We have each other, and we will accomplish great things together for our kids. Thank you. Now I'm proud to introduce the Governor of the state of Rhode Island, Mr. Dan Mckee.
Thank you, Principal Black. In 3 months, yes, you are one of the newer principals, but we're excited about that. And I got the pinwheels to prove that we have our students out there right now. I think Max was one of them, but thank you so much for the pinwheels. And it's really a pleasure to be here tonight. I think back on the, just a year ago, plus about 2 months, when I was sworn into office as governor, I made four very important priorities. And one was obviously getting shots in people's arms. We were slow to do that. We were able to regroup, figure out a way to get that done. There was like 90,000 doses on the shelves, and I felt as though the teachers in the state of Rhode Island, school personnel, needed to get their shots, make them a priority, because our kids are our top priority. And why wouldn't you make our teachers and all the people who work in our schools a priority as well, to show that we are serious about educating our kids. Second was about the economy. It was making sure that we structured a way to help improve our economy. And the education is directly related to that. Education was, third on the list in my office. Elizabeth's over here, and we staffed up our office too with people who could interact with our superintendent in Providence and with Javier, and we did that. And one of the first things I did was make sure that I intervened there and make sure that we got a contract in Providence so that when we opened up in September, we were doing it in a way that was really positive. And the kids are our motivation. Right, Javier? Kids are our motivation. So, and then finally, the fourth issue had to do with equity and making sure that we were serious about leveling playing fields where they were unlevel. Understanding that certain communities, certain students have more hurdles to jump than others. So we wanted to make sure we were lowering those hurdles, and we were also taking them down, but also understanding that we want everybody to get over the finish line. My wife, Susan, and I, Susan's a teacher, we wanted to make sure that our son and daughter got over that finish line. And just like the kids I coached that had a lot more hurdles to jump than others, we wanted to make sure that they got over that finish line. So those four things really drove the agenda over the last year. Number one now in vaccinations, we're leading the Northeast in terms of an economic recovery. We're going to report a real strong additional surplus. I like surpluses a whole lot more than deficits. When I was a mayor of the town of Cumberland, I made sure, when the school department came in and Alex came in, Prignaro, who was the business manager for the schools, and he reported a surplus, I said, that's great. We can do a lot more with surpluses than we can do with deficits. So the education piece. First, thanks to everybody that's in this room that's been an educator. This has been an historic time frame where we're filled with challenges. But as Principal Black said, we also have great opportunity. And one of the stories I like to tell is with Dr. Jha. He was my go-to person. Now he's the President of the United States go-to person. He was my go-to person during transition about making sure that we were getting shots in the arms and really doing the right thing there. But I was at a behavioral health, child's behavioral health, mental health forum in Providence with him. He had just flown in from the Vatican because he's a world leader. We're happy to have him here in Rhode Island. And he was asked this question. He was asked the question, when are we going back to 2019? And he thought, and he paused, and he said, we're never going back to 2019. When you go through a world event, like a pandemic, a depression, a world war, you never go back to where you came from. So in Rhode Island, we get to choose where we're going to land. We get to choose to go to a better spot. And that's what I'm confident is going to happen. We know there's challenges on education right now. Anywhere, I read a study this week on Harvard saying that the recovery time for certain students is going to be greater than others because of the virtual nature of the education that was, going on for the last 24 months or more. We know that there's going to be a time frame for recovery that we're going to have to figure out how to make work. But with the people in the state that are involved in education, from leadership with Rhode, all the way through our administrators, our superintendents, our teachers, the families and the students, I'm really confident that that's exactly what's going to happen. We're going to end up in a better spot. Look at this building we're in right now. What a way to celebrate that, right, Superintendent? We're going to end up in a better spot right here in East Providence, and each and every one of our 39 cities and towns. So I reflected that in my budget as well. So what I put into the budget was a plan. And I happen to believe that plans are very important. I'd ask everybody here to go to ri2030.com. Lieutenant Governor is with here tonight. Lieutenant Governor and myself, along with Secretary Pryor of Commerce, we put together a statewide plan for a decade. And inside of that statewide plan, we have education, higher ed, K through 12. We have the economy, the blue economy, the green economy, housing, health care, working with child care. The list is comprehensive, and it's a fantastic report that I've just signed off. It was the People's Report. We did 13 virtual meetings, Sabina, 13 different virtual meetings, along with we did in-person meetings as well, and bringing in the very best people that we could bring to the table to talk about what was Rhode Island going to look like in 2030. Where are we going to land that's going to be different than 2019? So in our budget, I put a comprehensive proposal together. And we're right now working this week. We're going to continue to talk about this. So that's why I'm so pleased to be here tonight. The fact is that we need to have a plan. And the plan goes something like this: an additional $250 million in construction bond to provide direct funding for school construction projects, just like here in the state of Rhode Island. That may even go up. Good news today on our surplus. That may go up. We like that, right? Yes, that may go up. I get to weigh in on how we're going to allocate those surplus dollars, and I do believe that a portion of those dollars are going to be right in education. Municipal learning centers, which will include resources and tutoring leadership strategies inside a total community effort. I believe that it's an all-in effort on education. I believe that the main things happen right in your schools. But I also feel as though that if we are able to get a community buy-in, making education the top priority in the state, community by community, then that is going to move us ahead. That's going to land us in a better spot. We have an education transition fund, which recognizes that there has been enrollment losses by way of the pandemic. And so we held harmless any district that had less students heading into next year than they had heading into the year 2019. And we put those funds in because we know, and you know, that as you do the work, you're going to have more and more students that are going to be in your schools. That's what's going to happen. I promised Javier that's going to happen in Providence, and it's going to happen in all our communities in the state. Our public schools are the most important thing in our communities in terms of bringing communities together. We also have put in a higher match program, which supports things like retrofitting of buildings and even starting fresh and new space dedicated to education, workforce, and higher and health monitoring. Those dollars have to do, those are federal dollars that we put in the budget. Every community in the state of Rhode Island will have the ability to match funds with the state, with those funds, to create a community center of some sort, either retrofitting existing space or actually building new space, And the three things that have to happen in order to use those funds correctly is, one, it has to have something to do with education. It has to have something to do with health. And it has to have something to do with job training and job development. We also are putting a higher ed academy together, partnering in with Shannon Gilkey from Higher Ed, and talking about going out into the communities where people live and meeting them exactly in that space, and then raise up people who have started certificate degrees, people who have started associate degrees, people who have started four-year degrees, and increase the number of people in our state that have advanced degrees. Whether it's the skill sets that have to do with building beautiful buildings like this, or whether it's the people who are going to be driving the blue economy or putting the offshore wind, which we are #1 in the country as well, and we're going to hold on to that space, because the education and the effort is what's going to drive economy, which is going to drive earning power for the people who live in our state, the young people who live in our state. A higher ed bond, another $62 million to support repairs and construction at URI and CCRI. And then a strategy that we'll be beginning to talk about, and we're going to need all educators to weigh in on that, rebranding Rhode Island College. Education, teachers, absolutely top priority there. Creating housing in ways that can stimulate people who come into our job markets that we need. Science teachers, math teachers, bilingual teachers. We need them. We got to invest to make it happen. And the governor is, Lieutenant Governor, a proud graduate at Rhode Island College, and I'm going to tell you right now that when we rebrand that school, it's going to be something that is going to be amazing to watch, because we're going to get all our educators involved in that, and everybody who thinks about the future of the state of Rhode Island. I see that as a pivotal piece in terms of our education effort here. So our plan seeks to engage every city and town, every community member, and every municipal leader. It includes every family who wants what is best for their child, giving them access to academic and enrichment programs, both in school and out of school. Reversing the pandemic's impact on learning for the past 2 years will take hard work, but we're going to do our best. And as I continually work with people, and I say, do your best, but understanding your best is hard work. And only you know whether you did your best. It must involve all our local communities. This issue is far too important. It's going to take every single one of us to step up and be part of the solutions. It's going to take short-term initiatives and long-term systematic changes. It's going to take courage and outside-the-box thinking, but we can do this. And I know that skill and talent that are in our schools today are going to contribute heavily to this effort. To the General Assembly members here tonight, or hearing about what we talk about, let's work together and pass the education package in my proposed budget. And let's get to work accelerating learning across all 39 cities and towns for all the young people that live in all 39 cities and towns today and into the future. Go to ri2030.com. It's an interactive site. We need your input. We need to hear about how we're going to work together to get this done. And as Dr. Jha said, we can land in a better spot. And with your help, we're going to do just that. So thank you so much for having me here tonight.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I know at this point in the program, you're expecting to see our Commissioner, Angelica Infante-Green. Unfortunately, the Commissioner cannot be with us this evening. Earlier today, she tested positive for COVID-19 and is at home recuperating. She wanted me to make sure that I reiterated that this is a reminder that this pandemic is not over and that we all must continue to take care of ourselves and each other. My name is Victor Capellan. I'm the senior advisor to the commissioner at Rhode, and she asked me to deliver her state of education on her behalf. And so I will do my best to deliver on behalf of the commissioner. You all know the commissioner really well, so you know it's a tough act for me here, but I'm going to do my best to deliver these remarks on her behalf. So good evening, and thank you everyone for joining us tonight for the 2022 State of Education event. We want to start by recognizing our Governor, Dan Mckee, Lieutenant Governor Sabina Matos, Mayor of East Providence, Bob De Silva, and the honorable members of the Rhode Island State Legislature here tonight, our Board of Education Chair, Barbara Cottom, and our elementary and secondary council members who are here with us, Michael Almeida, Colleen Callahan, Karen Davis, and Amy Beretta. There may be others that I didn't get a chance to see, as well as thanking the entire East Providence Public School community, which is hosting us this evening. Thank you as well to our friends at the Providence Career and Technical Academy, PCTA, who were able to print our programs for us tonight. I also want to give a special shout out to East Providence Superintendent Kathy Crowley, who is here with us this evening as she prepares to retire from leading the district. We want to take a minute to make sure that we all join in recognizing her incredible leadership throughout the years and her tireless efforts on behalf of students and families. Kathy, we wish you well on your next chapter and know that you'll be incredibly missed by all who were fortunate enough to work with you over many, many years. Rhode Island students, parents, teachers, principals, superintendents, and appointed and elected officials, it brings me great joy that we could come here tonight at East Providence High School, a school that is a shining example of what is possible in education in Rhode Island, to celebrate the strength and resiliency of our state education system. Tonight we gather to look back on the past year in education and to look ahead on how we could go even further for our students and families in the years to come. Before us is an opportunity to rewrite the greatest education comeback story, one which centers the needs and priorities of the very communities we serve. We are hopeful of what is ahead, but there's no sugarcoating the truth. Children across the state, just as across the nation, were deeply impacted by COVID-19. And we take great pride in knowing that we were among the first states in the country to return to the classroom and keep schools open, but we cannot lose sight of the fact that it was not easy. We know that losing the deep personal connections, academic supports, and social emotional development associated with in-person learning was a grave blow, and the disruption caused by individual and school-wide quarantines made continuous learning difficult. However, we did not waver, we persisted, and we continued to move forward so our kids could continue learning and thriving. We are blessed that as a state, Rhode Island's unparalleled educators and staff, from teachers to nurses and principals, all gave so much of themselves to keep students learning as best they could under the most trying of circumstances. And there's no doubt that without their tremendous efforts, we will be infinitely worse off today. And that is why tonight, we want to take a moment to recognize the various groups for their service and partnership. First, we would like to thank our Rhode Island Teachers of the Year. Many of them are here today for always going above and beyond for our kids. Our Teachers of the Year, led by State Teacher of the Year, Lisa Garcia of North Kingstown, who recently represented our state at a convening at the White House, represent the best of our school communities. Their passion, selflessness, and dedication make our schools and our state better for it. and we are eternally grateful. So please join me in thanking and congratulating them. Throughout the pandemic, we heard many times that we're all in this together, underpinning unity to overcome every challenge and every curveball. In education, our sense of camaraderie and unity was fortified because we all had one mission. From school committees to principals and superintendents, to serve our kids to the best of our ability. I'd like to take a moment to recognize the leaders and members of the Rhode Island Association of School Committees, Rhode Island Association of School Principals, the Rhode Island School Superintendents Association, the Rhode Island League of Charter Schools, and our other charter and school partners. Throughout the last 2 years, we have joined, even if virtually, more times than we can remember, to strategize, adjust, course correct. We may have differed on some occasions, but that never got in the way of our work and our mission. Thank you for all your work and partnership. We did it together. We also want to thank our partners from across the state, from running after-school programming to funding amazing opportunities for our students and teachers. You are helping our students succeed. In particular, we would like to recognize Neil Steinberg, President and CEO of the Rhode Island Foundation, for supporting our education priorities. I encourage you to check out the Foundation's recently published Staying the Course report, which shows how we are connecting stakeholders from across the state. Is Neil here in the house? Well, thank you, Neil, for all of your work. Each and every one of you has made this an incredible year for Rhode Island education. In the wake of a once-in-a-lifetime global health and economic crisis that touched virtually every facet of our lives, we knew returning to school would be difficult, and we went into it with the expectation that it will be an uphill climb for our students to where they needed to be academically. But as we examined the data from 2021, we saw something that some would say was unexpected. Despite facing harsher headwinds than perhaps any other school year in living memory, some classrooms across the state made forward progress. Pinpricks of sunshine peeling back the storm clouds. From Providence to Little Compton, westerly to Woonsocket, the data show that dozens of dauntless groups of students and teachers were not only able to weather the storm, but fostered growth under the most challenging of circumstances. They embodied what we all know too well, that no matter the obstacles, Rhode Islanders rise when we work together for our kids. Dozens of schools were able to improve their academic outcomes, and we had the great pleasure of featuring many of them as part of our Rightcast Rock Stars, which capture the hearts of folks across the state. Over and over, we heard of remarkable efforts by schools to spark excitement, support educators and students in coming together to do the best possible. These glimmers of hope show that we can and will continue to advance despite the hurdles. Even more, recently, the College Board announced that Rhode Island had the largest improvement in AP pass rates than any other state over the past 10 or of the past 5 years. So Rhode Island's graduating class of 2021 passed at least one AP exam at almost double that of the class of 2011. To give you some context, that's 22% of the class of 2021 passed versus 11.9 for the class of 2011. This 10-year, 10.8% percentage points is more than double the national growth of 5.3 points. Only the District of Columbia shows slightly higher passing rates than the state of Rhode Island. So we cannot forget the damage done by COVID-19 or the deep inequities in education that the pandemic revealed. We are more dedicated now than ever to following the principles of the LEAP task force in order to rebuild an education system that works for every student and family. We've said it before, and we'll say it many times more. We're not looking to go back to where we were as a state education system before the pandemic. Our governor just said it. We're not going back. We want to be better than what we were in 2019. So right now, we are uniquely equipped to do that work. One-time federal funds have empowered us to make deeply necessary changes at every level of our education system. Looking across the room, and earlier today, I saw dozens of faces who have worked with Rhode directly to help shape our ESSER funds and the plans that they made for their district to create forward-thinking programs that meet their unique needs. This year alone, Rhode has handled more than $750 million in federal funds. That's $750 million, which we are investing in programs that will make a true difference, starting with the communities who have been most heavily impacted by the pandemic. And this isn't about throwing money at a problem. It's about creating systems that uplift and empower educators at their schools. Through the LEAP District Support Program, we're not only investing $20 million in districts across the state whose students were most affected by the pandemic, but we're providing educators with structured coaching powered by Harvard's Proving Ground program, new data analysis tools, and full-time support in their efforts to accelerate learning over the next 2 years. We're already looking forward to expanding that program to give every district that level of support and to help them reach their highest potential. We know that our schools will use these funds to supercharge their academic programs and keep kids moving forward throughout the school year. But with a projected recovery time of 3 to 5 years across the state, as detailed by the recently released study by the National Center for the Improvement of Education Assessment, we need to think beyond 180 days of instruction that end by 3 p.m. The future of education in Rhode Island is extended learning opportunities where students can pursue the fields that interest them the most. We know that extended learning opportunities will make a difference for our students. Last year, we launched the All Course Network, a one-stop shop for families to browse and register for after-school and summer programs, and receive tremendous positive feedback from the thousands of participants in that inaugural summer. These opportunities not only strengthen students' future through college credit courses and career training, they make our state stronger by bringing children from across Rhode Island, letting them learn, grow, and become friends in the same classroom, unbound by their zip code or who their parents are. This year, we're looking to make extended learning offerings even stronger through the innovative programs like the Municipal Learning Centers. Under Governor Mckee's visionary proposal, our cities and towns can draw on their deep understanding of the needs of their neighbors to create customized learning opportunities for Rhode Island children. We're grateful to the governor for fighting for this important program. And to the state lawmakers joining us tonight or listening to us, stick around or connect with us, because before the end of tonight, the governor and Rhode staff are going to talk your ear off about the difference these centers will make if given the chance. We're all about looking toward new and exciting ways to get our students to access their education. Our Office of College and Career Readiness this afternoon launched Rhode Ready, a new text bot that will help our juniors and seniors prepare and apply for college. I encourage everyone here tonight to give it a try. So if you want, you can take out your phones. It's okay, you can take out your phones, and you can text Rhode Ready to 401-567-2822. It's 401-567-2822, and Rhode will be able and ready to answer any questions you have about the college application program. So the theme is innovation. COVID-19 has forced us all to re-examine our priorities at the most basic level, especially in education. That disruption is an opportunity to rebuild our systems in a way that prioritizes our students. Over the last year, we've engaged with people from across the state as part of our initiative to reimagine high school. Through robust engagement, our proposal for readiness-based graduation requirements became the most commented upon set of regulations in the history of the K-12 education in Rhode Island. For those of you who had the opportunity earlier to meet with Steve Osborne and Olivia Smith, who are leading this work, you know that we're ready to update our graduation standards to better align to what colleges and employers are seeking. Right now, we're getting close to the end of the public comment, and if you haven't yet, we want to make sure that your voice is reflected. The pandemic has also shown us all too clearly the flaws in our system, the foundational cracks through which marginalized students are allowed to fall and slip through. As we look through the future of Rhode Island education, we must rebuild with intention and create a system that fully recognizes the unique needs of our most vulnerable populations. That's why we were proud this year to release the final version of Rhode Island's Blueprint for Multilingual Learners, the state's first ever plan for comprehensive instruction of this unique group. That plan has been nationally recognized by U.S. Secretary of Education Miguel Cardona as a potential model for other states to follow. So that's a tremendous reversal for our state, which just 5 years ago was being harshly criticized by the U.S. Department of Justice for the chronic underservice of multilingual learners in our largest school district in Providence. But through long, intensive work, we've crafted this statewide plan and worked with the Department of Justice to make significant progress on improving MLL education in Providence. And that's just a fraction of what we've done in the capital city under the community-led Turnaround Action Plan. We've hired community specialists to meet the needs of our students, added 11 full days of professional learning for educators, implemented a district-wide K-8 curriculum, and so much more. And we hired a tremendous and amazing educator as our superintendent in Dr. Javier Montañez. And as we take strides to strengthen education in Providence, we're using what we learned there to help other districts succeed. Our commitment to equity extends beyond any one district or any group of students. Building on the work done with the Blueprint for Multilingual Learners, we have also begun convening community groups and stakeholders on a similar project, the Blueprint for Differently Abled Students. Just like multilingual learners, this group needs specialized, thoughtful support in their education, and Rhode is going to work nonstop to create a plan to provide it to them. This is yet another point where we can learn from what we changed during the pandemic, as we saw scores for some young and differently able learners rise amid specialized supports that they weren't getting as part of traditional schooling. And so we're excited. Tonight we'll hear from some of you who are on the front lines of creating and implementing those measures. Of course, the pandemic has also deeply affected the mental, behavioral, and social-emotional health of our students. We must create an academic atmosphere in our state that recognizes those factors of being just as important as the success as any environmental factor or pedagogic technique. Over the last year, we have worked with groups across the state to create that environment in our schools. As you no doubt saw earlier in the evening, we've launched a full court press through the Let It Out campaign, which uses the most powerful social emotional resources that we have in our schools, our incredible educators, school counselors, teachers, and administrators. The mental wear of the pandemic hasn't just affected our students. It has strained those same educators and administrators who have worked so selfishly to ensure the health and well-being of their students. For that reason, we have tried to create resources for our school staff as well, including partnering with Yale to launch a social emotional health program accessible to every educator. We cannot stress this enough to every person in the audience tonight. You have given so much of yourself over the last year. Please make sure that you're taking care of yourself and do not hesitate to reach out to Rhode if there's anything we can do to lighten the load. We are here to support you. That's at the heart and soul of why we're here tonight. And we want to once again thank our host here at East Providence for hosting us this evening, especially the tremendous work done by the facilities crew to accommodate the space on a school night. And let's talk about what the governor mentioned. It's all in my mind. What an amazing building. What a gorgeous space. This high-tech 21st century campus is exactly what we have in mind when we say that every student should be learning in a world-class facility. And this year, we've made more progress than ever before by ensuring that every single student in the state will get to go to school in a facility just as beautiful as this one. This month, we're going to complete the distribution of the $250 million 2018 school construction bond that funded this school building and many others across the state. And thanks to the diligent work of the School Building Authority, we have gone far beyond the original promise of warm, safe, and dry, and deliver school buildings that we could only dream of a few years ago. And through RIDE's Facility Equity Initiative, we have invested an additional $20 million in school districts with the greatest need for facility improvement, so that no child's potential is limited by where they grow up. But there's even more. Tomorrow night, we will be presenting to the K-12 Council our proposal for Arts Initiative, which, if approved, will provide a total of $5 million to schools across the state to strengthen and re-energize their arts programming. Investments can be made to improve auditoriums, support culinary programs, and even to purchase musical instruments. So more students will be able to learn and grow in wonderful spaces like the one we're in today. And this November, with the help of our General Assembly and the leadership of Governor Dan Mckee and Lieutenant Governor Matos, we're going to ask Rhode Island to double down on building the schools our children deserve. The governor has proposed another $250 million bond or more. And when we get it passed, we're going to change the face of education in Rhode Island forever. Governor Mckee, Lieutenant Governor Matos, and our colleagues in government here tonight, let's work together to get this done together for our kids. This year wasn't easy, it never is, but in spite of every odd stacked against us, we pushed forward, we helped our students adjust, learn, and grow. We pushed ourselves to do the same. We turned adversity into advantage, and we used it to power new forms of education, new programs for our students, and we took aging schools and built world-class education facilities that will serve students for generations to come. We, in the darkest moments of our collective lives, came together to ensure everyone had the emotional support they needed. Tonight, we celebrate each other's part in that work and take a well-earned breath of rest. This is the moment for us to come together and give center stage to the heroes of last year, to listen to them closely so that we may learn from their journey. Tonight, you will hear from educators and students from every community and every specialization about how they drew hope from despair and potential from impossibilities. I hope that you leave here tonight carrying in your heart the stories of your peers, and that you, in turn, have a chance to share it with all of us, what you have gone through and what you have found over the last year. Thank you again for being here with us tonight, and thank you for being there for your students every single day. And now, we will hear from some amazing educators who have kept Rhode Island moving forward through the pandemic. I would like to ask our student moderators to start making their way up. Emily Mitchell of Westerly High School and Maribel Vega of Central Falls High School. They're both juniors in high school, and we're thrilled to have them here with us tonight. So I want to thank all of you for the time. I want to thank all of you for your support. And on a personal note, I also want to say thank you to our Commissioner, Angelica Infante Green, for her bold and courageous leadership over the last year. And I ask that you keep her and her family in your thoughts for a full recovery. Thank you all, and have a great evening.
Hi everyone, I'm Emily Mitchell. Thanks so much for being here. I'm a junior at Westerly High School, and I'm the student council representative for the class of 2023. I enjoy working hard in all of my classes and staying involved in my Westerly community and the extracurricular activities at my school. I appreciate being here today, and thank you so much for attending.
Hello, I am Maribel Vega. I'm a junior at Central Falls High School. I am a part of the Student Advisory Council of Rhode Island, and I am very pleasured to be here today.
All right, let's get started. Remember, we're here to hear your stories and your thoughts on resiliency during the pandemic. And more importantly, we want to look forward at a future of education.
Feel free to chime in when you can, and we'll be here to make sure everyone gets a chance to share their insight and keep the conversation flowing. Let's start. First question. How did you adapt to education during a pandemic, and what lessons are you taking with you in the years to come?
First off, hi, I'm John Rosenbaum. I work at the Segway Institute for Learning in Central Falls as well. I think the number one thing is there was no choice but to adapt. If teachers didn't adapt, there was no alternative. I think the number one thing was to adapt to the situation in the moment and then realize that wasn't the end, that it was going to be a constant change, constant need for flexibility. And the moment you think you have your feet under you, the situation's completely changed. So teachers who felt able to adapt in this crazy situation were the teachers that were able to, I don't want to say thrive, in some cases thrive, but at least hold on and educate students. That there really was no other option, at least in my eyes.
Good evening. My name is Susan Vardo. I'm the supervisor of career and technical education at Davies Career and Technical High School. I've been in career and technical education for 31 years in Rhode Island. So a lot of my answers have to do with career and technical ed. It was very difficult working in a school during the pandemic, especially a career and technical school where students really look forward to that hands-on application. I would consider in the future, hopefully we don't have to deal with something like this again, but maybe providing like a staggering schedule where students can come in school, be safe, have hands-on training as a necessity to support the high levels of skills being taught in each program. We managed and we had very successful opportunities even through the pandemic. We had very many students also participate in work-based learning. So that kept them very engaged and coming to school with some motivation when they were allowed to come in.
Hi, my name is James Naughton. I am a school counselor at Warwick Veterans Memorial Middle School in Warwick. And what I noticed is it was a difficult time, but the resiliency of the teachers and the students, everyone coming together to make, with the uncertainty that existed when we first were informed that we'd be going to distance learning, was incredible. That within a matter of days we were able to turn it around, and it changed everything, how we approached our jobs, how the teachers approached their job, and just the flow and how quickly they were able to adapt and make it work for the kids was pretty incredible. And it showed us that we can handle any situation and just move forward in a positive direction. So
Go next. Hi, my name is Jennifer Eflon. I'm the Executive Director of Multilingual Learners in Providence Public Schools. Thinking back to that time, as part of my role, it is part of my job to think about equity for our multilingual learners and making sure that they have access to instruction, even if it may not be in a language that they understand. And I remember it being very important at that time, weekly, for me to gather data across the district, across the city, to make sure that our students who maybe did not know English or who were new to their apartment or their new home, that they had internet access. Things that sometimes we may take for granted because we have all the time, just became more of a focus for me, and I think that's definitely a lesson that I'll take away whenever we make any decision at the district level, thinking about how it impacts and the ripples of the community that we serve, and thinking really closely about populations when we break it down into subpopulations. How does that affect each and every single student?
Hi, I'm Karen Festa, Social Emotional Learning Coordinator for Narragansett Public Schools. And first of all, when I hear the word pandemic and navigating, I just gotta take a deep breath on that. I get a little bristly. So I focused on meeting our students and family needs one day at a time. And sometimes it required multiple check-ins with families throughout the day, as well as our students. I also think that connecting with our students and their families and building solid foundations of connections and really getting to know them more than a surface level is definitely something that we're gonna take with us in our lessons for years to come. Being present, listening, watching. Just sit back and watch them, asking questions, helping them feel safe, encouraging and supporting them, and helping them navigate those struggles and those frustrations, not only for students, but for families and our colleagues.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Nancy Lawrence, and I'm happy to be representing Burrillville School District tonight. I'm one of their reading specialists in the district. I work with students in kindergarten as well as grades 2 and 3. Last year, during the pandemic, I was teaching 3rd grade at the time. What I needed to learn to adapt was how to incorporate technology in a variety of new and innovative ways to make sure that I was reaching all of my students. A big lesson that I took away from the whole last year is that there's always a way. There's a way to reach students no matter where you are. And relationships with your students and with the people that you work with are so important and very key to everybody's learning. Another big thing for me is realizing that all students do need some kind of social emotional learning and support. That was something that was really important for me to take away and that I'll continue to carry on.
Thank you so much. So let's talk community engagement. How can we collaborate with our families and community members to support our students?
All right, great question. So thank you, Emily. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Pat Page, Dr. Page to my students. I'm an entrepreneurship and finance educator at East Greenwich High School, and I also have the pleasure of leading Rhode Island Jumpstart, which is a nonprofit organization focused on building financial capability in our K through 16 student populations. Community engagement is really at the core of why I transitioned from corporate into education. And I think we have opportunities here to create what I would call relevant learning experiences that have a meaningful output for both students and their families. And I want this group here to consider what's going on right now with that participatory budget process in Central Falls. For those of you who may not be familiar with this, I had an opportunity to learn about this from some of the founders last week. This group brought together a problem, or what I would characterize as an opportunity for the students and the broader community to look at how they were going to allocate grant funding to better support learning outcomes within their community. I'm certain that those of you who are in the space here this evening, whether you're educators, students, family members, that you can probably sit here and think of multiple opportunities to involve students and the community in programmatic decisions that affect them.
I'll add to that. I think it's really important that we provide parents with techniques to be able to support their children in their educational experience. Transparency is a key when working with parents so that they feel welcomed when they're coming into your school. Another point I wrote down is sometimes families are intimidated to come to the schools because they may not be from that area of where the school is located. And a good practice that some schools can put into place is going out into the communities and hold informational sessions with those parents to break the ice and have them feel that they can trust you and come and visit your schools. And of course, everybody uses social media, so that's the quickest way to get information out to parents.
I can go next. Whenever I think about family engagement, I often reflect on my own family. My family came here when I was 5, and my parents didn't know any English when I was a student in Providence, but they had always been my biggest advocates. Even though they had a very elementary education themselves, it was really important for them to get to know what I was learning and to support my goals. And so I always think about that when I work with our multilingual families. In Providence alone, we have over 75 languages represented, and so it's very important that whatever information we share out, we do it in a way that our families can understand. And so steps that I've taken in my office is just making sure that as a district we have access so that every teacher can have an interpreter in the moment, whether it's video or on the phone, so they can interact and really have a meaningful dialogue with the families that we work with. I completely agree with you. We can't always expect parents to come to us. We have to go to them. And so I'm a big advocate as well with home visits and just really getting to know the families that we work with, and again, reducing the barriers that there may be already. Language doesn't have to be a barrier if you have the right tools.
Okay, thank you so much. During a national teacher shortage, how do you make sure your career in education more sustainably for you personally?
So as a school counselor, we tell the students all the time when we go to the classrooms to talk about, what their path might be, what the options are. A lot of the times we tell the students to find a path that is enjoyable to you. Find something that you really love to do. And I think, being in the setting where students are coming to talk to you, I'm reminded, so I look at this question and I'm like, how do I make it more sustainable to me is just by talking to the students on a daily basis about their problems. It just reminds me of, it's what I like to do. And when you can share that with other kids or the students, and I just think it's, when you realize you have a job or that you enjoy going to work every day, it's really not a job. I think you spread that to the kids, and they want to search for something similar themselves. But I don't know. That's how I interpret that.
Thank you for sharing that. So our next question is, how do you know if you are doing a quote-unquote good job, or if your lesson, curriculum, or school is working?
So I just think that we're all trying to do our best, and it's not necessarily about a good job. It's about navigating what our students and our families need to become successful citizens in our community. I also think that ideas, lessons, and activities don't always work, but as teachers and learners, we adapt, we change, we modify, we improve, and we do what's best for all kids.
I'll go next for this one. This was a question that I really was happy to see here. For me, I feel that students, or I know if I'm doing a good job when my students are happy and they're excited to learn. When you walk into a room and students are excited to see you and they have a smile on their face and they're ready to go and engaged in what you're going to be doing, I think that lets you know that you're doing something right.
Kind of build on what has been said previously. For me, it starts with kind of co-creating what are those defined deliverables, working with the students, identifying a schedule, identifying those performance gates, and ensuring that not only are the students positioned to hit those gates, but ensuring that I am providing the supports that they need just in time to be able to achieve those targets. And at the end of each project, we conduct what's called a retrospective, which is something that's done in industry where you go back and you look at the products and the process. And I think that's so powerful for the students to be able to clearly articulate, here's what we did well in terms of our group dynamics, and here's what we would improve upon as we move forward with our next initiative.
So as Dr. Pat just mentioned about industry, it's important to not just keep the students' opportunities within the schools, but also have industry partners come in and get involved with the students, along with post-secondary partners, so that our students never give up and they always know that there's other options and they have the opportunity to create goals, but also have the connections and the information they need to make sure that they move forward with some type of goal, whether it's going to college for 2 years, 4 years, or a technical school, or to go out into the work field. It's important to get those stakeholders involved in the students' lives.
Thank you for answering that. The next question is, what are you doing to provide a homely and safer environment for students?
I believe as we're kind of exiting that scary stage of the pandemic, the stage where everyone is completely separate, especially the stage when people were at homes and doing virtual learning. I think it's the slow, intentional, safe, and gradual kind of taking down of those barriers that we had to put up for safety, for public health before, because in a lot of cases it's a real challenge that to coexist with those barriers and a welcoming and warm classroom. It's not impossible, it's just a whole lot more difficult. So as they start to slowly and safely come down, then I think the work of kind of creating that more human and interconnected space can start, and collaborating student to student, face to face, working together hands-on different things, is such a welcome kind of change and a throwback to the way things used to be, that I think really fosters that kind of warm and open classroom.
Go next. I think as adults, I feel like we're like the thermostat. We set the temperature for what our students and even the people that we work with, who may also be adults, feel. And so if we want them to feel safe and supported, like we have to make sure that we are, emanating that for them, that they feel safe coming to us with anything that they may have. If it's a student, I know recently we've been getting an uptick of students who are coming from Afghanistan, and so they're coming from a very different, emotional place that some of our other new arrivals may be coming from other parts of the world. And so it's really important to me to learn about their culture, to learn about the experiences that they've had, so I can make sure that we are providing professional development for those teachers who will work with them, so they can create that safe environment that may look different for some students versus others.
Thank you. So this year, the Rhode Island Department of Education and the Office of Post-Secondary Education unified its strategic plan for public education. What role does K-12 education have in shaping lifelong learners? And do you believe the current way we are educating children fully prepares them for the needs of the 21st century?
I think that's such an important question, and what I really appreciate is the fact that the state and the districts are focused on what I would call 3 levers in terms of changing the educational outcomes of all students. The governor in his remarks talked about equity. There's no question that a zip code or current documented achievement levels should not be defining or limiting the opportunities and the expectations that we have for our students in the state. The second lever was excellence in learning, and I think having high but attainable expectations for students, if we have those, we can collectively lift all of our students with the right set of supports, not only in the classroom but in the community. And I think that third lever that has been identified is community engagement, bringing students, community members together to address those relevant problems of practice and those opportunities in the school and the community can be so empowering.
So I have some notes here that I put, and I did look over the strategic plan. It was well written, but I do believe that before we even move forward with some of the ideas that were presented in there, it's difficult to prepare all the students in the state of Rhode Island for the 21st century when we have facilities, technologies, attendance rates, and graduation rates all on different levels. I think we need to look at why there is such a discrepancy from one district to another. And if we fix that, there's a better chance for providing an equitable education for all students in Rhode Island. Thank you.
Thank you. How do you protect and preserve student and teacher mental health? Can you share an example of initiatives or practices that have helped remove stigmas and normalize being proactive about one's wellness?
Just from my personal experience, I know RISCA, which is the Rhode Island School Counselor Association, did an excellent job of providing monthly or quarterly gatherings where all the school counselors got together and we were able to share with each other just to go over how are we doing. You know what I mean? It gave us an opportunity to talk as a group. But I think the key word that came out of the pandemic was self-care. We all learned the importance of self-care and being able to take care of ourselves. Well, you know, we wanted to reassure ourselves, hey, what we're doing, we're doing okay. And it's, I found that very important. I love being able to talk and say, hey, what are you doing at your school or in your district? And it was just reassuring to say, hey, we're experiencing the same struggles. So I found that as a positive, and we took the information, or I did, and the other counselors took that information and kind of turned it around and tried to make similar groups in the school with adults, with the other teachers, and to say, hey, look, you formed, so we kind of created groups of just different interests of maybe the teachers might be willing to sign up for, you know what I mean? And say, hey, look, we have to take care of each other before we can turn around and take care of the students. So that was what we did, and I thought it was just something very helpful for us.
I'd like to add a little bit to that, and I agree with what James had said in regards to self-care for adults and for children and for families. I also think self-awareness is also critical, identifying what your triggers are, what your stressors are, just identifying your emotions throughout the day from the time you wake up to the time you go to bed. Think about the things that bring you happiness and bring you joy and really tap into that. So just a couple of examples that we had done in Narragansett. One was Social Emotional Learning Day. March 11th was National Social Emotional Learning Day this year, and we are fortunate to have Governor Daniel Mckee sign a proclamation for the state of Rhode Island declaring March 11th Social Emotional Learning Day in the state, which I thought was such a wonderful initiative and support for the need of social emotional learning. We also are next week are establishing Health Awareness Week. May is Mental Health Awareness Month. So as part of our Health Awareness and Health and Wellness Week, we're having a diversity read aloud. We're having students make posters just presenting information about what is mental health. We are having students preschool through 4th grade paint kindness rocks, and the 4th graders will be supporting the preschoolers, and the 3rd graders will be supporting the kindergartners in painting those rocks, which are going to go to the entrance of our school building as well as the entrance of our school community garden. We're having a self-care station for our staff throughout the week, which members of our community, for example, All That Matters Yoga, are going to come in and do some activities with staff, share information about health and wellness, nutrition, sleep, diet, caring for yourself. We're playing music at lunch. Every day is a different genre of music. And we're also having a therapy dog visit. So there's just a little sprinkling of the awareness of mental health and wellness, and also giving students and staff ways that they can take care of themselves and then identify how they're feeling inside.
Thank you so much. So the next question is that school culture can impact a student's social, emotional, and academic growth significantly. How do you define a strong school culture, and what pathways lead to this?
So I'd like to start with that, really going back to sort of the framework that a lot of the districts already have in place. If you think about the portraits of the graduate that most of the schools have, I've heard it said that we all teach graduates just at different points in their academic careers. And if we look at some of the knowledge, skills, and dispositions that are the basis of that vision of a graduate, I think that's a great jumping off point by which we can really operationalize what we mean by that and hold each other accountable for those kinds of standards.
Also, for school culture and supporting students, especially through the social, emotional situations that we've all encountered this year, it's also important to make sure that we continue to respect one another, not just when something serious happens, but day to day, to continue to support that positive culture throughout the school community and to accept each other's for cultural and personal differences. If we continue to act in that manner, every day should be a positive experience for our students, and hopefully things get better and better.
Just want to add a little bit more to that. When we see and value each other, we can love each other, and ultimately we can defeat negativity. We also need to humbly accept that our differences are our strength, and peace can begin with us.
Thank you. If you could go back to your first year in education, what advice would you give yourself?
I'm going back a long way, but I still remember to continue to be fair, supportive, equitable to all students and faculty, and especially personally to continue to grow as a professional and never stay stagnant.
I'd like to add to that with not staying stagnant. I think it's important to think about accepting change and embracing change and being flexible. Education changes and the students in front of us are constantly changing, so it's important that we're ready to accept that change and keep up with anything that's thrown at us.
Hello. All right. I think my message would be pretty straightforward and simple, that you're not as terrible at this as you think you are. You will get better. And just like everyone who has said so far, keep pushing yourself. Don't ever kind of just rest on your laurels, keep moving forward, keep trying to innovate.
Thank you for sharing. So now we'd like you to share one message directly to the students.
So what I would say to high school students, it's okay that you don't know exactly what it is that you want to do after high school. That doesn't mean you shouldn't have some form of a plan. I think it means, getting out there, putting yourself out there, talking to your school counselors, initiating those conversations, finding out those opportunities that may exist, checking out extracurricular activities that maybe you didn't think you might be interested in. But I think this whole notion of having a very clear path of what it is that you want to do 4 years into the future is probably pretty unrealistic. I look at those of us who are here at this table, I don't know how many of us thought that we would probably be in education or in the roles that we're in. And it's a matter of really identifying what are those opportunities, what can you learn from it, and how that can guide you to find exactly what your passion is.
So if I had one message, I would let students know never to let anything defeat you, to meet your challenges as best you can, but also to always know that you have an adult to support you through the process.
I just want to tell all Rhode Island students that you're such a gift in this world, and you are the #1 reason why we are all here tonight. You are loved, you are important, and you matter.
I also want to add, and I think that's great. I wish you would have ended with that. I wish I would have gone before you. But one thing I want to share, again, just thinking about my own experience, I feel that every student should know that their background and their experiences are invaluable and that their voice matters. I remember as a student, sometimes I was embarrassed to share where I came from. I was embarrassed that I lived in poverty and that I didn't know English. And now it's like assets for me. It's what makes me good at my job. It's what has given me the ability to be here and have this role. And so for any student that feels insecure or feels like they don't have what it takes to be successful, that's not true. And where you come from, those are assets. That's your biggest value.
Thank you everyone for sharing. So on behalf of Commissioner Infante Green, staff of the Rhode Island Department of Education, and elected and appointed officials in attendance today, we would like to thank our panelists and audience for coming.
It was a pleasure to be part of this conversation and highlight the remarkable work of high school and school leaders across the state. As a student, I want to thank the incredible educators who made a difference and helped students to continue to grow and thrive. Thank you.
That's it. Yeah. Nice job, ladies.
Thank you so
Maribel
much.
and Emily.
Thank you. Thank you, yeah.
Nicely done.